Right, hello, welcome. This is an interesting book to start the new year with. So for Christmas, I was I was given this book by my father, right? Because he knows that I want to be a writer, and he thinks that writers they should read everything, and that includes Crash by J.G. Ballard. You probably don't know what Crash is, and if you do, then I don't know if I'm going to persuade you to read it or if I'm just going to give you a little rundown about what it's about and what I thought about it, because this book is very strange, right? It's grotesque in a way that like mutilated orifices and like penises going into those orifices is also grotesque. I mean, that's basically what a lot of the book has. Is there's mutilation, there's lots of sex, and there's lots of metal and cars, because it's about your protagonist, James Ballard, who, if you Google it, you'll see by any summary that's ever written about this book that he gets into a car crash. And then after that, he becomes pretty obsessed with car crashes, but not in a way that you're kind of like just eager to view one, but in a way that he kind of gets turned on by them as well. So that's what it's about. So you have your protagonist, and then he meets someone else who is equally passionate about recreating car crashes, getting into car crashes, the whole violence of them, and the fusion of technology that is the cars and the biology of human bodies. So there's all the nature versus the artificial colliding, and it is a pretty erotic book. I don't know if it would be classed as eroticism. I do think it is just your piece of literature that's not erotica, because I don't think it kind of hits that mark of being stimulating in the way that's like entertaining, which I think erotica does. This book, it's just got lots of lovely details about human body parts. But it is an interesting book, right? So all I knew when I was going into it was my dad said they made a film about it, and it was heavily controversial, the film. So I did a quick Google, and I saw what it was about, and I thought, right, I can see why it's going to be controversial. Nevertheless, I'll read it anyway. And I did read it. It took a while to read it. I've been very busy over the past few weeks, so I couldn't read it as smoothly as I would have liked. This means that it was kind of like stop, start over like a period of 2 weeks, which means I didn't get entirely sucked into the book. However, I still managed to enjoy it, and if I'm honest, it reminded me of a few other works, like Fight Club, that is one in particular, and then also Last Exit to Brooklyn, which is another book that reminded me of this one. So, my thoughts on reading Crash were very explicit, right? Lots of sexual perversions, which is kind of how I read it. I thought like everyone is kind of, perverted. I mean, this guy really gets off on the type of like bodily mutilation of having sex in cars, but in a way that's not just, casual. It's like you can only get off when you're inside a car. But then I realized that it was written in the very early 70s, right? And, my brain has been polluted and poisoned by graphic things. I mean, it's so easy to see a car crash and, to access explicit videos nowadays that you do become desensitized to it. But think about it from the point of view of people in the 70s, right? So these people, they do not, they can't just, watch a car crash video online. And with all the sex scenes in this book, especially homosexual sex scenes, the gay sex scenes, towards the end, that's going to be pretty unheard of back then. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't have seen it, and a lot of people would definitely not have read about it, especially in a book like this. So I do think Crash is considered a part of like literature of dissent. I only just kind of stumbled upon what that means, but it is basically, an opinion that's kind of going against the status quo, I believe. So that's what he explores. People have different takes on what this book really means. I do believe the author has actually shared his own ideas, but, everything is open to, subjectivity. But I do think it's interesting about, you know, the people's connection with technology. I mean, here the technology is like is as advanced as cars, it seems. And nowadays we have technology in a complete different realm. I mean, technology is really advanced, of course, since the 70s. And the sexuality, the new sexuality that is discovered between man and technology then seems to like blossom through cars. But now, when you look at it, the sexuality that's kind of developing between man and technology, God knows, it's just like infinitely complex, especially with accessibility to the internet, things just like, I don't know, VR, even OnlyFans. I don't know if I'm waffling on or if this is like coherent, but I'm just thinking that with a book like Crash, it seems to be like the early seed and foreshadowing of what's, you know, going to become of the relationship between humans and technology. So that was interesting. That was one take from, I believe, a philosopher. I don't remember his name, but that was how he viewed the work. But I do believe the author himself said something about how it is just simply more to do with the, you know, the dark impulses that lie, you know, below the surface of every person ever. And that is what Crash kind of explores. It does have all the perversions of the mind, and it kind of, when you read them through this guy's point of view, it becomes normal. It becomes normal. After like the 20th mention of penis and semen inside a car and like pubis, it all just becomes so normal, right? You do become desensitized to it. And I was already pretty desensitized to what was in this. I'm not trying to sound edgy and stuff, but I feel like for a modern audience to read this, of course they're going to be like slightly, ugh, that's really weird and nasty, but not as much as some poor person in the bloody 70s reading this. They must have been horrified. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. I did find it interesting. Do I recommend it? I guess. I wouldn't say it's a pleasurable read. I don't know if this is a nipple, so I don't know if you want to be caught reading this version in public, because every time I've been reading it, people go, is that a nipple? And I have to say, I'm not actually sure, because it does look like one. But as someone who enjoys literature and enjoys to write, I do think it's important to read something like this and, you know, understand the context of when it was written, because just reading it as a piece of work, sure, okay, it's pretty graphic and it's in your face, but when you consider about the time that it was written from, I think it kind of elevates it slightly. It was really pushing against the grain, which is nice, you know. It is somewhat countercultural. I don't know if this book falls under that category, but there you are. So, if you do like cars and sex, as the title suggests, then you clicked on this video for this book. And my answer is read it. Read the first 10 pages, and that probably sets the tone of the rest of your reading. And then you can decide whether you really like sex and you really like cars. So yeah, here you go. There is Crash by J.G. Ballard. Very short video, not really a review, just me waffling on because I need to kind of like cleanse the brain from this before I approach something new. But yeah, anyway, take care guys. Peace out.